What's up? What's going on, guys? Rago here from Kite. I'm just here with Blake, and we're down on the Keys at Key West Bight Marina, and we're gonna head out on Richard's boat today. What's going on, Richard?
Yeah.
So Richard here actually just got on the new Evo.
Inside the Evo.
That's right. So we're gonna get a review on the new Evo versus the old Evo.
Cool.
Let's get to it. Siri, what's the temperature today?
The high temperature for today will be 35 degrees, and the low will be 23 degrees.
Hey, good morning, guys. Rago here from Kite. So we just got off the water here at North Shore Beach, and it's sunny right now, but about 20 minutes ago it was crazy foggy out there. But we were just getting a dawn session in before work. And anyway, we've had a lot of requests on our channel for a review on the 2018 North Evo and how it stacks up against the 2017. And the last few months I put a lot of time in testing this kite, and I finally got down to Hatteras last week, and I was able to get some sessions in and really get my bearings on this kite. Now the reality is that this kite is a completely different animal, and it's been redesigned to basically meet the same end. And it's pretty rare for a kite to undergo this much redesign, and even more rare for it to succeed. So how does the 2018 Evo stack up to the 2017? So I've been doing reviews on our channel for quite a while now, and this one was a little bit more challenging for me. With a lot of the reviews that we do, I've put years of time on the kites. And with this one, I really needed to log the hours in varying conditions on different sizes, and it took me a few months. With it being winter here in Michigan, I had to take a few trips. I actually got skunked a few times, and finally, after about 4 months, I was able to put in enough time where I felt comfortable giving a candid review on this kite. And I'm happy to say that I've got my bearings on the kite, and I had a chance to chat with some friends who've been riding it as well, which really does help just getting other perspectives to make sure that I'm not being too biased when doing these reviews. So let's dive into it. So let's start with the obvious here. In 2017, the North Evo had 5 struts, while in 2018 it now only has 3 struts. So honestly, I had kind of come in with some assumptions on this review, and I actually assumed that the kite would maybe be just a little less stable, just because, frankly, as far as kite design goes, usually the more struts a kite has, the more stable it is, and I have to admit that I was dead wrong on this point. So I did take the 12 meter out, pretty ridiculously overpowered and really, really gusty wind about 2 months ago in the early spring here, and I'm happy to say that it was surprisingly stable. Very little flutter in the kite, very controlled. There were a few moments where I was stupid overpowered, and the bar was actually ripped out of my hand. And I didn't really feel it in the harness. Like there are some kites that I've demoed where when it gets real gusty, they kind of jerk you around and you feel it. And I'm happy to say that between the 2017 Evo and the 2018, you can still expect the same stability, the same comfortable feeling ride. The kite's not going to jerk you around. It's going to be very well controlled, regardless of the circumstances, the wind conditions, so long as you're not pushing the kite beyond what it's designed to do, of course. So if stability is on your radar, don't sweat the new design. Now another point to consider here is the bar pressure and turning speed, and if you look up North's literature on the 2018 Evo, you'll see that it's designed to have a little bit lighter bar pressure and be a little faster turning, and this actually is true. The kite is a little faster turning, and it does have a little lighter bar pressure, but I would still definitely classify this as a moderate bar pressure kite. I wouldn't call this a light bar pressure kite by any means, and that's a good thing in my opinion, but of course that's completely subjective. Some people like heavier bar pressure, some people like lighter bar pressure, and more or less this is the same kind of moderate to light bar pressure that you can expect from most North kites. So 2018 Evo, definitely just a little bit lighter. So let's talk about something that everybody's always concerned about, and that's how does the kite jump? And this was a point that I did find some differences, and interestingly enough, the 2018 almost seems to have become more beginner friendly. And what I mean is, while the 2017 Evo was definitely a pull and go kite, I found that with the 2018, no matter how sloppy I got with my timing, no matter how junky the conditions were, You know, if you pull that bar in, it's a very springy like jump, lots of hang time, really just incredibly easy jumper, really fun. When you're juiced on the kite, you know, like any kite, you do want to make sure that you're working it so that you do come down nice and soft. But all in all, between these two kites, it's really difficult to compare at this point. I guess the best way to describe this to you is they're just different. It's kind of the same idea, the same kind of loftiness, and like the same kind of hang time, but the feel of it is different. So it's almost like a springy feel, like you really have this initial jump, and then there's the loft with the Evo. At least on the experiences that I've had with it and the conditions I've had, it's just a very smooth takeoff. And you know, compared to the 2017, I would say that the 2018 just has a different feel. I don't quite have the word for it. We could maybe we'll say it feels a little more refined. Maybe it feels a little smoother. You know, and it took me a minute to get used to it. And actually, Jake Mitchell got out for a session the other day here with it, and he was trying the kite, and you know, he didn't quite know how he felt about it because he was getting used to it as well. And that's usually what happens when you're testing new kites, is there's always a learning curve and you have to get used to it. You know, and I will say that my first couple of sessions, I wasn't quite certain about it. But obviously, like any kite that we test, and this is why I make a point to really put my time in, is as soon as I got used to the kite, you know, I've really come to enjoy the jumping on the 2018. And between the two, I actually have to say that I probably prefer the 2018. But again, that's just, you know, that's just my subjective stance. I don't think that there's a huge advantage with the 2018. I think it just feels a little different. So for you riders who are riding the 2017 right now, but considering moving over to the 2018, you know, it's probably going to feel a little bit different, but it's definitely not an advantage or a disadvantage regarding jumping. Just a different feel, maybe a little smoother feel in my opinion. So another point to consider on this kite while we're on the point of jumping would be its freestyle capabilities. Now the North Evo has always been regarded as an all-around freeride kite that has, you know, freestyle capabilities, waves capabilities, and that's why it's an all-around kite. You know, it's pretty much what you would expect. It's pretty good at everything, not amazing at everything. I would definitely say it's amazing at jumping and hang time. But regarding your freestyle, it's what you would expect. It's a good tool for entry-level freestylers. Even advanced freestylers can make this kite work. If you are, you know, gunning for freestyle, you're going to want to put this kite on the hard setting. So on the throttle, make sure that you adjust the kite on the hard setting, and then you just want to trim your kite a little bit. And what it is like all-around kites, is if you ride it on the soft setting or the moderate setting, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed with the freestyle. But if you ride it on the hard setting, it is much better. It's much more fun. And that just comes down to really any all-around freeride kite, is they get the job done, they work really well. And you know, in contrast to all the new freestyle kites that we have, like the North Dice or the Cabrina FX or the Nash Dash, you know, it just it's a little bit different. You're not going to get that same initial pop and slack, and you know, you have to pull the bar to your hip a little more. It takes a little more strength for handle passes. So if you're used to riding a kite like this, you're going to have no problem with it. If you've been riding a sea kite or a freestyle kite for a while, you're going to notice the difference, and it's going to take you a while to get used to unhooking with a kite like this. Regardless, it'll still get the job done. And then actually, I did find that the 9-meter would be a nice little tool in your quiver for some of those stronger days where you just wanted a really stable, consistent, fun to fly kite that's still very controlled. And it would be a really good tool for days like that to build confidence as you're progressing and trying to learn to unhook in different conditions. You know, and if you're sitting there thinking to yourself right now, like, oh man, I really do want to progress in that category and that's something I want to explore, actually this might be the right kite for you. And the reason that I say that is if you're ready to move on to a more advanced kite, you know it. You automatically know where you are. You've hit a point in your riding where you're ready to do that. So I don't want to dive too deep into the freestyle category here, because it is an all-around kite, and we all know what that means. It does everything well. And North obviously has more niche kites, and they do have freestyle kites that are going to outperform this kite in the freestyle category. But it does get the job done, and for most riders, it is the right tool for the job. Hey guys, as always, I'm going to do a written blog on this, and throughout the year, as myself and the rest of the shop, you know, puts in the time on this kite and really gets our bearings on it, I'll be updating that blog. So click the eye icon, and then you can open that blog up in a new window, or you could watch the video there if you like, whatever works for you. So click that eye icon, and if it's been a few months since I've released this video, there's a pretty good chance we've updated the blog and put some new insights in on the Kite. So let's talk about kite loops. Now this is a point that I don't address very often, and admittedly, up until this year, kite loops weren't that high on my radar, aside from like down loop transitions and things like that, and it's something I'm starting to enjoy, but obviously it's not a point where I feel comfortable giving you a full assessment. So while I was down in Hatteras, I did chat with my buddy Lauren, and he is an absolute savage when it comes to kite loops. While I was out there sessioning, he was literally jumping over me and just looping the kite. So when I got done, I definitely made a point to sit down and chat with him. And you know, what he told me was between the 2017 and the 2018, the 2018 Evo seems to have a little less grunt and a little less pull through the loops. And again, this isn't a bad thing. Actually, something we were talking about is how with the new 2018 Evo, it's actually almost the perfect kite to learn kite loops, because it's very controlled kite. It's pretty gentle kite. Obviously, like any kite, when you really pull on in that bar for a kite loop, it's going to go from that arcing turn to a much tighter turn. So if you're sheeted in and you're pulling, you know, very, very hard, if you look at the video here, I'll show a shot of Lauren, and you can see that he actually is pulling in very aggressively, and he's actually pushing out with his other hand on the other side of the bar to loop that Evo, and that's going to create a much more tighter, consistent loop on the kite, as you can see here. And so anyway, the main advantage really going from 2017 to 2018 is kite loops are going to be more forgiving, more fun to learn, and a bit easier, whereas with the 2017 there was more grunt, a little more grunt to the kite loops, and that's the biggest difference regarding 2017 to 2018 in this particular area. And on that note, I did spend some time searching the forums just to see if anybody was talking about it, and somebody made a comment that I actually thought was just perfect when it comes to gear. And obviously I do gear reviews and we talk about a lot of these points, but this comment that I read just really resonated. And he made a comment that you know, people get so tweaked about their gear, and you know, oh, will this kite loop, will this kite jump, will this kite do this, will it do that? And you know, like when you look at a sport like surfing, nobody says, oh, can I do a cutback on this board? I mean, and there's a lot of truth to that. The reality is you can do most anything on most any gear, so don't get too caught up in the little details. And while it's kind of fun to dive into these things in these videos, the reality is that what you're riding, you're going to get used to riding it, and there's really not much that you can't do on any kite. They're all going to do everything pretty well at this point, so don't tweak too much. But you know, we're still going to dive into these things. It's still fun to talk about, and obviously there are things to consider, and when you're picking up a new kite, you want to know how it's going to perform. So if kite looping is on your radar, 2018, it's going to be a great kite for learning and improving your kite loops. So let's talk about the upwind ability on these two kites. Now, with both the 2017 and the 2018 Evo, what happens, and like I said this earlier, is when you do get into the bottom end of these kites, when you're in those really light winds, is they take on a more delayed feel. And then, admittedly, again, I came into this with some assumptions, and I had assumed, just from what I had read and looking at the design of this kite, I had assumed that the new 2018 Evo would have maybe just a little less low end and more high end than the 2017. What I found is it does have more high end, meaning you can take the same size out and just a little bit more wind than you probably could from the last year's model. But the low end, there wasn't really any difference that I could notice. I took both the 12 meter 2017 and the 12 meter 2018 out, and roughly right around probably 11-12 miles per hour. And you know, I was able to get upwind, I was able to jump, albeit it wasn't like I was jumping to the moon, but the kites definitely got the job done. So to that end, I would say that there's no real advantage on the upwind ability between the 2018 and the 2017. The 2018, again, it's going to have a different feel. It took me a minute to get used to it. So when it comes to the low end and the upwind ability, you can expect a very similar performance from the 2017 and the 2018. The 2018 just flies a little bit different, and like we addressed earlier, it's just a little more nimble and a little more fun to fly. So in summary here, guys, the 2018 has been completely redesigned to basically meet the same end. It's just a lighter, leaner, faster, slightly more playful iteration of its former self. And you know, if you come into this expecting it to fly like a dice, you'll be disappointed. If you come into this expecting it to fly like an all-around performance freeride kite, you're going to be very happy with the 2018. And hey guys, as always, this series, it's an open forum, so I'd love it if any of you who have been flying the new Evo chimed in and put your thoughts in, and let us know what you think about this kite, and just help some people out here who are trying to get a good review on it. And it would just be great to get other perspectives and hear what you guys had to say about the kite as well. So hey, that's a wrap, guys. I gotta get into work here, but if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, comment, subscribe, and then we will see you next week with sessions.